Welcome to the Merlin Crypto Market Update located on the X app. I'm Abs, the host and senior engagement officer at Merlin, and today's episode features a replay from our Merlin X Spaces. Every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., you can catch us live on the X app at Get Merlin Crypto. We dive into captivating discussions about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology with our engaged audience, special guests, and the founders of Merlin. Please note, these spaces can sometimes experience technical hiccups and end suddenly. It's all part of the experience. Thanks for tuning into the Crypto Market Update, proudly brought to you by Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto.
Spaces right here on the X app. I will be your moderator this evening. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. I am Chief Finance Operations Officer for Merlin and one of its co-founders. You may find me on all social media platforms at Age of Jeremy. Your host this evening is none other than the Abs or Abdullah from the Good Morning Crypto Show, also Merlin Senior Engagement Specialist, and also the host of the Good Morning Crypto Show. Like I said, the Good Morning Crypto Show comes to you Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern from the 3T Warrior Academy YouTube page. You can follow Abs right here on X at 3TGM Crypto. Please follow Merlin here on the X app as well. You can also follow us on LinkedIn at Get Merlin Crypto. Please also follow Merlin on Instagram and Threads at Merlin_crypto. Once we reach 300 threaders, we will be randomly selecting one lucky threader to win a 90-day trial of Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto. Merlin will be opening up to waitlisters, or is open up to waitlisters, so make sure you are on our waitlist so you can get access to Merlin as we roll that out to new waitlisters every day. You can visit merlincrypto.com to sign up. Tonight's special guest is Edward Ito Farina. Ito is a longtime crypto educator since joining Twitter, now what is called X, back in 2010. 2010 is when he became a crypto educator. He is the CEO of Alpha Lions Academy and known for breaking many key headlines in the XRP community. You can follow him right here on X at Edward Farina. We will be listening to music for just a few more moments to let some more people into the space and make sure we are set up for success. And we will be right back to get started. All right, everybody, one last time, welcome to another Merlin Spaces right here on the X app. I will be your moderator this evening, Jeremy Quintanilla. You can find me on all social media platforms at Age of Jeremy. Again, your host this evening is none other than Abs, Merlin Senior Engagement Specialist, and also the host of the Good Morning Crypto Show. The Good Morning Crypto Show comes to you Monday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern from the 3T Warrior Academy YouTube page. You can also follow Abs right here on the X app at 3TGM Crypto. Please make sure to follow Merlin here on the X app at Get Merlin Crypto. You can also follow Merlin on Instagram and Threads at Merlin_crypto. Once we reach 300 threaders, we'll be randomly selecting one lucky threader to win a 90-day trial of Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto. Merlin is also open up to waitlisters as of right now, so make sure you are on the waitlist so you can get access to Merlin as we roll that out to new waitlisters every single day. One last time, tonight's special guest is Edward Ito Farina. Ito is a longtime crypto educator. He has been on Twitter, what is now called X, since 2010. He is the CEO of Alpha Lions Academy and known for breaking many key headlines in the XRP community. You can follow him right here on X at Edward_Farina. Here on Merlin's X Spaces, we enjoy debate, but please keep it family friendly and please be respectful. We want these to be an exclusive atmosphere. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities that they represent. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to your host this evening, Abs.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm excited about tonight's space because there's a lot that we're going to talk about. I don't know if we're going to have our special guest appearance because there's some drama going on in the XRP community, and I think we can talk about it openly, Johnny. But before we get into all this, how you feeling? And I want to kick it to Mario and Josh as well.
Abs, anytime you're 6 feet above ground, it's always a good day. So I'm doing great, loving life, trying to always progress forward one day at a time. And, so that's how I look at it. I don't know what's going on with our special guest tonight. That's fine. If you want to show up, great. If not, I don't know what's happening there. But it's all good. I just want to say good evening to all the Warrior Maniacs out there. We love you guys and appreciate you guys. And glad for showing up. And let's hop into it.
Absolutely, guys. We're keeping it lighthearted here. It's nothing too serious. I don't want to put out the wrong vibes. But Mario, I'm excited to have you here as well. How you feeling, my friend?
Hey, I'm feeling good, man. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I don't know what's happening in the XRP community, but I'm doing just fine here. I hope everybody, gets some love and positive vibes. I'll certainly send their way, and hopefully things can calm down. But I'm excited to know what's happening, Abs. You got me intrigued now. But I hope you're all doing good. I see a bunch of known faces here in the spaces. So sending everybody some love and let's talk some crypto. I'm excited.
Johnny Crypto, one of the biggest headlines we got going on tonight is OpenSea's manager was just sentenced to 3 months in prison and is paying a $50,000 fine because there were NFT trading from the inside, which is pretty interesting. They were figuring out who was going to list their NFTs, buying a bunch of them, rolling out a marketing campaign, and then profiting off of that. How do you feel about them being held accountable, Johnny?
Well, you know what? First of all, I feel great that they're being held accountable. You know how I feel about them. These are what I call in our industry the rat, snake, weasels. So we got a bunch of rat, snake, weasels in this industry, Ab. We got a space right now that is, the wild, wild west, and everybody is taking advantage of it. Unfortunately, it is sad that human nature does lead people to be corrupt and take advantage of situations. That is a sad day. But the good news is, this industry is starting to mature. There's things that are going to happen with regulation coming down the road that's going to change it and whip this thing into shape because there's so much potential here in this space. We just have to get through this early part where we're just getting started and there's no rules in place. And this is why regulation exists, because if you don't have it, humans will tend to take advantage and mislead and take advantage of people. But we'll get it straightened out. But I want to give a shout out to our girl here, Jenna X, in the crowd tonight. Hopefully she can come up and speak as well. But yeah, so I'm super excited. And yeah, so no, good. Hold those rat snake weasels accountable. We need to do that.
Jenna, how you feeling tonight? Thanks for being here.
Hey, homies. I'm good. Thanks for having me up. Yeah, so I want to know about this drama in the XRP community. Like, I'm always around. Am I living under a rock? Like, can you please, fill it in? Like, what's going on?
Oh no, Johnny, we're getting right into the drama. As long as the CEO gives me permission, I'll get into it, Jenna. But I
Oh,
got to kick
come
You
you
know
off.
what they
on,
say?
Jay.
You know what they say, Abs. I'll never forget. Eric Bischoff wrote this book. He said, "Controversy creates cash." So no doubt about it. We got controversy tonight. So let's hop into it and let's fill in Jenna and the community of what the heck is going on with our special guest. What did he do? Why is he stirring up the community? I wish he would have came on because I would have loved to have asked him directly. But yeah, Abs, fill everybody in. What the heck is going on with Ito?
Oh my God, did XRP Healthcare rug?
No, it's nothing like that. It's just a fake document situation, guys. And I want to make sure Gonzo gets a chance to say hello as well. I'm going to break all this information down. But Gonzo, how you feel, my friend? What's on your mind?
Hey Abs, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me. Yeah, dude, you got me like all intrigued. I've been out of pocket for the last few hours. So when I heard you say that, I'm like, damn, what's the tea, bro? Let us know. But thanks for being here, everybody. And it's going to be a great show.
Thanks, Gonzo. And I just want to remind everybody, we're going to be opening this up. So after about 20 or 30 minutes, we're going to bring our listeners up and let you ask questions or just give input on air. But a lot of the drama that's happening right now is centered around the BIS, Jenna. This is what's happening. There were some fake documents circulating on Twitter, and I guess Crypto Erie and King Solomon identified that these documents were not only fake, but they were manipulated intentionally. So I don't want to get into accusations here, but this is just what's happening. One of the documents that's going around is about Project Mariana, which is a CBDC automated market maker. And on these documents, in the bottom, it is cited that XRP would be a native token used to envision an international payment medium, right? So basically saying XRP would be the center of this new system. It turns out that these are indoctrinated documents. They're fake documents from 4 different websites that were put together intentionally to make people believe that the BIS was doing this. But what King Solomon did is he went onto their website, pulled up the real document, and showed this doesn't exist. It never existed. And now I guess one of our special guests was caught up in the mix there because he retweeted and posted that document. So that's kind of the gist of what's going down. What do you think, Jenna? I'd like to hear your thoughts, and Johnny and whoever else is in.
Well, okay, but my thoughts are, why can't you show up to a space and be like, oh yeah, I retweeted wrong information. I'm sorry, guys. My bad. Like, that's what I don't get.
I don't know. Johnny, what are you thinking?
I
I'd
mean,
like to hear from
Jenna,
Mario and Gonzo as well.
Jenna, first of all, let me just say shout out to my brothers Mario and Gonzo. Love you guys. Thanks for being here tonight. And you too, Jeremy. Always a great moderator. Abs, I agree 100% with Jenna. Jenna's spot on. Like, listen, if I did something and my name was getting smashed around in the community, the first thing I'd want to do is be on the ear and kind of, defend myself or come out and say what I did and why I did it, right? And I was hoping the man would have showed up, have a couple cojones, get over here and tell us what happened. Where this document come from? Did he create it? Okay, if he did, just listen. The sooner he owns up to it, the better for him. If he did it, if he didn't do it, well then come and say that too, and just get it out there because this community gets fired up really quick. XRP community,
Well, mute button got Johnny there, but I think I want to address something else, Jenna. What do you think about Twitter's new advertising protocol, kind of incentivizing headlines and not necessarily real news? Do you think that's going to become more of an issue for people like us?
Yeah, Abs. I was literally just gonna hit on that. It seems like we're seeing so much more just random content being put out and people literally doing whatever they can to be able to get those impressions. They want to get up to that 5 million. They want to get monetized. And it seems like the content is becoming like dumb, just anything literally for views. And I think that we're going to see a lot of fake news. And because they know, right, that the XRP army is just like, hey, we are so diehard, and it seems like an easy target, especially because not everyone is going to go research every single thing that they have seen online, right? It's easy for them to get engagement. So I think that's only going to get worse, not better, unfortunately. So we're really going to have to stay on our toes and just double check everything. I mean, we've all accidentally done it, where we're like, oh, this is cool, and post an article, and then we're like, oh, shoot. But what we are not doing is purposely putting out false information to trick the community, and that is not okay.
Yeah, I think that it's something that anybody can easily fall for, just pressing that button and reposting. If they see a piece of news. But I think that as Jenna said, as we are in this phase where everybody's chasing for those views so that they could get that payout. as educators, influencers, however you want to, address it, I think we do have to start being a little bit more cautious and responsible, and maybe do a little bit of research before we repost something, even though it may be like super exciting and you're like, oh, let me just get this to my followers. We have to just start verifying that information before reposting. But again, honest, I don't know if that's the case. If he was doing it for the counts, doesn't sound like it was. So, it's an honest mistake.
I think Abs, it brings up a good point of, we're all human and we make mistakes. If it is a mistake, right? If it's not like purposely doctored, but like we all make mistakes and you just got to own up to them, right? Like we're all human. But I think where usually people go wrong is in the way that they deal with the crisis or they deal with the mistake, right? They either ignore it or they make excuses, and people just don't want to hear excuses. They want to hear, you know what? I didn't pay attention to it. I retweeted it and it is what it is. But unfortunately, just people don't do well with apologies or when they're put under a crisis situation, and they usually make the wrong choice. And usually, it's just as basically it's just saying sorry.
Abs,
Well,
can
you
hear
know
me,
what catches my attention? Sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
My bad. Yeah, I just want to comment in there real quick based on what Gonzo was saying. I don't know how much you heard before. But you know what? Gonzo's right. The cover-up is usually worse. Right? Gonzo will know this. The cover-up is usually worse than the crime. Right, Gonzo?
Yeah, 100%. Right? 100%.
The cover-ups would just come out and own it. Like Jenna was saying, just come out, be a man.
Well, Johnny, let me throw this in here because I like to do the investigative journalism. We always joke about this. But one of the things that catches my attention is if somebody purposefully made a fake document, let's say, I'd like to find the original source that put it on their Twitter, because it wouldn't be, there's no financial incentive. No one's going to see that document and go and buy the XRP and pump the price. That's not how it works. You'd need billions. But if somebody was able to monetize that document and the hype off of it, that's basically the only way you can earn off of a headline. So if I'm putting on my my detective hat here, it's pretty simple. We can trace this down if we put the effort in. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I'm sure that there'll be a bunch of people that do it. The real question is, for somebody like him, you're just going to jeopardize your reputation. And, I don't know why you would want to put that at risk. But, some people maybe think the clickbait is worth more. I don't know. But you're going to, in this space, you don't want to mess around with the XRP army. The XRP army is a sleuth. You saw what they did to Charles Hockinson. They are very passionate. There's zero value in creating anything fake because it's going to get caught. You're going to get caught in this space right now because there's so many people dying for good news and wanting to hear good news about XRP and it's being adopted. Abs, we talk about this all the time on Good Morning Crypto. I tell you all the time, don't get hung up on all these news articles that this stuff is happening because they can't tell you. Most of these companies have NDAs in place and they can't talk about this stuff. So the minute somebody does or an article comes out that it's done, people are going to start to validate, is it real? How real is it? It's just foolish to even attempt to put something fake out there. It isn't going to last a minute before it gets called out.
Well, Johnny, we have all the Riddlers today are pointing at pictures of mountains and saying, okay, so XRP is going to be the chosen one, and they're going to announce it at BRICS because this second mountain right here is blue, and this is why.
Honestly, I think it's important that we bring some real news too, because this is what's important about the BIS article. Again, it's another global organization building on Ethereum. Everything that we can read in this article tells us not that it's being built on the XRPL, but instead it's an ERC20 compatible protocol. And it's just like JP Morgan. It's just like what we've seen in America. That's what has me concerned. Once again, it's not the best technology. It's the relationships that matter. Johnny, I'd like to hear from you or Gonzo or whoever.
Abs, what do I tell you all the time, buddy? It's not what you know, baby. It's who you know. Ethereum, nobody's going to like this comment, but Ethereum has the connections. Ethereum is the chosen one. Nobody's going to like it. Okay, but the reality is just think about what you've seen so far. Ethereum always gets the pass, and it's got connections to JP Morgan, and it's got connections to the SEC. Just start putting the pieces together.
Don't forget about the big dogs over there in China, too. That's a big important one.
Uh, yeah. So listen, at the end of the day, ETH is going to have a leg up in this race, guys. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. You better freaking just get used to it and recognize and understand that they ain't going away. They're going to be part of this new system. You love them or hate them. See, here's the difference, Abs. I have no love for any single one of my cryptocurrency coins. I don't love any of them. I'm not married to them. I mean, those so bitches, as soon as that price target hits the exit plan in my Merlin thing, boom, they're gone. They're out of
Even
there.
Cardano, I know you and Charles got a pretty
No, there's
lovey-dovey
no love for
relationship.
Cardano. Get out. Don't even start that. Don't even go. I have no love for Cardano either, other than the price potential. That's about it. So the reality is, Abs, if people don't fall in love with your coins and they realize that you're just picking horses in this race that you want to finish and win the race, right? That's what you got to be looking at. Pick your horses, put them in your stable, saddle up, sit back and wait, get Merlin, put them in your exit plan, have your exit targets, and then you could do set it and forget it, and you don't even have to worry about it no more. You just check your account. Merlin's going to tell you, oh, yeah, hit my price target, time to sell, put the money in the bank. Or wherever Jenna, what are you doing with your money once your XRP price targets hit? But nonetheless, Abs, to me, this is what it's all about. Is it's looking at technology and solutions, and ETH is going to be there. So I want to have some ETH in my stable, right? Bitcoin's going to be there. I want to have some Bitcoin in my stable, and a whole bunch XRP, XLM, all different technologies for different solutions. XRP will find a home somewhere. Ripple will find a place. We know there's many countries working with them outside the U.S. We know there's some U.S. relationships going on behind the scenes, NDAs. They can't talk about it happening. It's going to find a place to play in this race. So just saddle up, get your exit plan, sign up for Merlin, go there, 30-day free trial right now, www.merlincrypto.com. Get on that wait list, Abs, and you can then set yourself up for success when some of these horses start trotting.
You're right, John, because most people, I'll be real, suck at taking profits. So
Mm-hmm.
It's the hardest thing
Hey,
to do.
Jenna, I'll raise my hand. I'm one of them. I'm terrible at raising profits. That's why I created Merlin. That's why I don't have to worry about it no more.
We got Coach Sean up here too. Guys, I saw Jose wanted to come up. Jose, I'd love to bring you up as well. Let's open it up for a discussion. But Coach Sean, love to hear from you.
How's it going? How's it going, everybody? I appreciate anytime the big dogs get to, show a small account some love, man. I appreciate that, man. I've been in the crypto space for a while on paper for the most part. I really just started heavily investing last year. But I definitely just wanted to speak on briefly about the Ethereum perspective. I have seen that they took, the good old boy approach from the very beginning. They put all the money in the right hands. They washed all the right hands. They rubbed all the right backs. And that's exactly why they've been getting free passes. That's exactly why that ERC20 bullshit is being mentioned with the BIS and Marina project. Like, it doesn't even make sense because, like, although, you have, the alternative means that they could process the transfer of value quicker, but just generally Ethereum is an inferior ledger compared to XRP, which we already know that. But like, I know for a fact that because Ripple has been such a very virtuous and transparent company, that they're really being frowned upon because the draconian system is so corrupt in a lot of ways. And that's why I'm so frustrated every day with the BS that's going on in our government over here in the US. And I really just would like to continue to gain more information from guys like y'all, man. Jenna X, I just recently started following you. I appreciate your information and content, man. And I'm gonna follow everybody here, man, that really got good minds, man, because the XRP community is definitely full of great thinking people. And I just appreciate the opportunity to talk, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. You sound like a very smart guy yourself, so we really appreciate you coming up here and speaking to us. Anybody else have any input before I move on?
Abs, while we're waiting for somebody else to come up, I just want to say that was awesome, man. Thanks for coming up and speaking. I agree with you 100%. It is an old saying. It goes, money talks and bullshit walks, right? And so you're right. Ethereum knew early on they had to put, a bunch of coins in people's hands, and they lined some pockets, and that's how it works, guys, whether you like it or not. It's how the system works. And so they got the right relationships early on, And, one thing when we had Yusko on the show, and he'll be coming on Friday, actually, he'll tell you it's not always the best technology that wins. And everybody here is smart enough to know that Ethereum is a slow dog and not the best technology. But they have the first mover advantage and they have the relationship advantage. And if you don't believe that makes a difference in how this game is played, well, then you're going to end up with the wrong horses in this race.
Johnny, another key detail about XRP compared to Ethereum is Ethereum has backdoors. So they can go in, they can freeze accounts, they can shut down the blockchain without a thought. But with the XRPL, you're going to need those validators to approve the shutdown. And to do that, it's going to take more than Ripple. So it's a decentralized network, and that's why they're all incentivized to go with an Ethereum, because that's more of the same, like Coach Sean just said.
Wait a sec, Abs, back it up. Question with that, do you mean like you're talking about Ripple shutting down like your account or wallet? Or because the only reason I'm saying is because I know that there have been projects on the XRPL that have literally frozen people's accounts because they've basically black holed their wallets. So I just wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Wait, say that one more time about what they do to their wallets.
Yeah. So take like XR Doge, for example. There were people who got in and were basically whales of the project. And what happened was I think his name is Iggy. The guy, he started blacklist wallets, so they could not sell on the DEX. They could not sell their XR Doge. Yeah, it froze their accounts. So that can be done on the XRPL.
Interesting. So what I was more talking about was not the tokens built off of the XRPL, but I was talking about the XRP transactions in and of themselves on top of the ledger. So I don't know if that's any different. Do you know?
I mean, I would think that it would be the same for XRP itself, that, they could freeze it at any point in time. That's just
we
my
saw
thought.
that with Pepe too. I remember Pepe had a wallet that made $9 million off a $2,000 investment, and they just blacklisted the wallet, so it wasn't able to take profit. So unfortunate for that person, but I'm sure there's some other solutions. Jose, I'd love to give you a chance to speak. How you feeling, my friend?
Hey, Abs, what's going on, guys? What's up, everyone in the spaces? Just wanted to introduce myself real quick to you guys that don't know me. I'm Jose Gonzalez. I'm actually the CEO of the 3T Español. So we have the Warrior Academy now in Spanish. So I just wanted to introduce myself. But I wanted to actually make a quick observation, Abs and Johnny. And I love, because every single day when I watch Johnny on Good Morning Crypto, he always compares this to the WWE and to wrestling. And he couldn't be any more further than the truth, because he's absolutely right. And I work in wrestling myself. I work in WWE and AEW. I interview wrestlers for a living. I work in behind the scenes. And when you can understand a wrestling script, you can understand what the hell is going on with this crypto world, because you can, for me, I just kind of put everything in characters, right? Like Gary Gensler is like your mega heel, and then like this guy is like your ultra baby face and things like that. So it just puts things in perspective for me, because I don't have a crypto background. I don't have a technological background. So I kind of put these things where it can make sense in my own mind. So it's just very interesting how things get played out in the stage and how much like wrestling this whole entire thing is. So Johnny, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, but thanks for letting me speak for a little bit. Really appreciate you guys. Love you.
Well, thank you, Jose. And I want to know, Johnny, I'm very interested. Who's the Hulk Hogan? Give me that too.
What you gonna do, brother? We're gonna have to save that one to the end, Abs. But I will say this. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Jose, the CEO of 3T Español. If you're Spanish or Spanish speaking, you need to catch that show. Those guys are great on there. Mario, Gonzo, and Jose. And Jose, thanks for stopping by, brother. We love you, man. Appreciate it. And I've always said that, yes, I kind of feel like the world is a stage. It is all WWE. The one thing I didn't know you worked for WWE. So my question is, where's my tickets, man? How do I get tickets, brother?
Nah, man, I don't work directly with WWE. I collaborate with them quite a bit. So I actually get to interview their wrestlers and do things like that. Sometimes I get to travel. So I work pretty closely with them and a lot of other promotions over here. So I've been doing that type of stuff for years now.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Johnny, it always works better with social validation. So, Jose, if you're looking for a security guard, I know somebody. Just just reach out. I'll fill you in. Johnny Crypto's a great personal security.
Yeah. Well, I know a Spanish guy that can help protect them that works out west, but I'm not going to say
Good point. Good point. But he's a secret agent.
secret agent. But no, I think Gonzo, Espanol, Jose is spot on. There is no doubt about it that there is, faces and heels in the true world, and I totally think that you are seeing that play out right in front of our eyes with with unfortunately some of the government agencies, and who's pro crypto, who's anti crypto. It's the same thing, right, Jose? It's facing the heels there. But the reality is, let's just hope that, like in any wrestling world, there's an agenda at the end of the day to get somewhere. And let's hope that the end game is that, crypto is going to be a market that they want to cultivate and develop and be here. And I truly believe it will be, because I think it's just another market that the big boys can manipulate and take advantage of. So why would they shut it down? They're not going to. Mm-hmm. I think they'll be like, hey, this thing's here. All right, screw it. We're going to take it. We're going to grow this son of a bitch, see how big we can grow it, and see how much money we can make off it. And the reason why I think it's exciting for all of us is because we're all here so early that we're going to have the ability, and I'd love to see what Jenna and Gonzo and everybody else thinks, but to me, we're going to have the ability to be invested in something so early that we're going to catch some of those big winners like Amazons and the Microsoft and the Red Hats, Red Hat type things. That happened when the internet boom happened, right? So the key is, don't be like Johnny Crypto. Don't sell your Amazon at $27. Make sure you hold on to some of it, because it may be $3,300 20 years from now. And to me, that's why I'm excited. Is I think this crypto space has that market opportunity. What say you?
I think what you just said, it carries so much weight. The fact that we're so early, it feels like we're late, but we're so early. And for the 24 plus people that are in this Twitter space right now, you guys realize that you are the 1% of the 1% right now. You are exposed to information that millions and millions of people all around the world don't have, and we 24 plus people in this Twitter spaces are having this discussion right now. So for me, this is a very bright future, and you're absolutely right, man. Now that I understand the game, now that I understand what these big guys are doing, what the banks are doing, and what these politicians are doing, it's not about doing what they say; it's doing what they do, and it's worked out for the best for me.
And what's very clear right now is that Bitcoin still drives this market. As much as we talk about utility and some of these tokens besides Bitcoin and Ethereum coming into effect, right now, Bitcoin controls the momentum. And this month alone, something very interesting happened. So a mysterious wallet became the third largest holder of Bitcoin in just 3 months. So this wallet opened 3 months ago, and since inception has purchased over $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is about 118,000 tokens. And Gonzo, I see you got your hand up, so I'm going to kick it straight to you.
Yeah, I was going to just make a comment about like how early we are, right? I mean, we're so early that we're still kind of arguing on what blockchain layer one is going to win at the end of the day. That's like, for those of you that are a little bit older, is arguing like which dial-up was going to win out, right? The true value isn't going to be in the layer ones. It's in the dApps that are built on top of it. Think about where we went with like Web 1 and then Web 2.0. It didn't really like blow up and the money was made until like Facebook was built on top of everything else, right? So it wasn't about like Dreamscape or some of the other dial-ups or AOL. It was about what was built on top of it. And that's how early we are like in this whole thing. We're still trying to figure out which layer one, but it's really like in the dApps. It's when they start talking about like, we won't even talk about the layer ones anymore, or what the underlying blockchain is that's underneath everything. It'll be the dApps that's built on top of it, whether they're centralized, whether they're decentralized. I mean, that's kind of how early we are.
Jenna, floor is yours.
The wallet you were speaking of, the third largest, that got tracked to Gemini, correct? With the Winklevoss brothers?
I did not see it get tracked to Gemini. Is that true?
Yep, I'm very sure. I was reamp on that today, and that's where they figured out that it was going to.
Wow. So that's even more interesting because I saw earlier this month they were hiring for their ETF team. So wouldn't surprise me at all if they're sitting and buying $3 billion worth of Bitcoin to launch some sort of an ETF product. But
yeah, that's my thought exactly.
What do you guys think? Mario, it's been a while since we heard from you.
Yeah, I didn't know that part about the Gemini either, but I think it's all too telling. And we were just recording the Hablando Crypto show, me and Jose, and I mentioned how, let's play out a scenario. We were trying to answer the question as to why Bitcoin just retraced the way that it did, and let's play out a scenario where we have all these Bitcoin ETF applications, and we know that institutions, they manipulate the market. That's just what they do in all kinds of markets, not just crypto. And there's all these applications that they need to acquire Bitcoin. They need to have the underlying asset to be able to offer it to their clients. And obviously, they're going to want to acquire this Bitcoin at a cheaper price. I'm not saying that's what it is, but just playing out a scenario in my mind, and it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it's good to know that, because I was thinking that, if somebody's accumulating that much Bitcoin in such a short period of time, what do they know? But now that it tracks back to Gemini, it makes sense.
I want to give a shout out to Jenna for that investigative journalism there too. So shout out to you, Jenna. Great job. I also want to remind people, anybody who has comments, just raise your hand and we'll bring you on up. Ask to speak. We'd love to hear comments, questions, whatever on your mind. But Johnny and Jose, you're both unmuted. So I guess we'll start with Jose and then go to Johnny.
Yeah, I find this very, very telling and very interesting. Weeks ago, almost a little bit over a month ago,
Oh, I think we might have lost you there, Jose.
Yeah, dude, I wasn't sure if it was me that went down or Jose went down.
No, jump right in, Johnny, and then we'll get Jose back up here.
Yeah, actually I will. But I see BDF coach has his hand raised, Abs. So maybe we'll kick it over to him and then I'll fill in afterwards.
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right, so thanks again for letting me speak up. So just real quick, I'm gonna step down back to a listener just to let the panel have some more slots. But the last thing I really just want to speak on, I just wrote in the replies a little bit about this. I'm gonna try to be as quick as I can. So there is a tremendous amount of corruption going on, right? I watched in real time last week's slaughter, right? On the minute charts, on the second charts, I saw in real time while all that dumping was going on, a literal feeding frenzy happening at the bottom of every red wick. And so I just want everybody, like I've been, listening to spaces or commenting spaces or even talking in spaces here and there, but I just want everybody to know, if you are investing in crypto for the long haul, if you are taking your financial freedom to your own hands, if you believe in the spirit of having, you hear them notifications, that's price action. If you believe in the spirit of having an even playing field going on to the future, know what you hold. Like, obviously, I'm a captain in the XRP army, per uphold. But for everybody else, if you have invested your research and time into any other cryptocurrency, know what you hold. If you feel like that's going to help create the future of finance and the transfer of value, know what you hold, and do not let price dump shake you. And don't get excited if you see a 5x, 10x spike on a green candle, because that is another tactic to shake everybody out. Just like that ruling was damn near strategic. Like, I believe that the letter of the law showed that XRP wasn't a security, but it also was very strategic. Just like right now, we got all this stuff with BRICS happening. Know what you hold. They're going to try to shake you at the top. They're going to try to shake you at the bottom. Hold on to your assets unless you day trade like I'm about to do, like some of y'all smart people up here. I know y'all day trade, and I just got my equipment, so I'm gonna try to do that too. But again, I appreciate everybody, man. I'm so thankful for y'all to have this content out here, man. Keep doing y'all thing, and let's get this money.
Thank you so much, Sean. And please set your notifications so we can have you at the future spaces. I'd love to hear from you in the future as well. Also, good luck with your trading. I wish you nothing but success in that venture. Johnny Crypto, I'd like to get your comments and then I'll continue.
Yeah, Coach, thank you, man, for your comments. We love these spaces so people can come up and talk and share their ideas. Ideas are how inventions are created. And when we created Merlin, it was really a combination of ideas of people talking and sharing ideas of, hey, you know what? you should have an exit plan. And hey, you know what? How do you track your crypto and keep it all in one place? And that's all because of conversations and people putting their minds together. And that's how we kind of, we built the concept of Merlin, where people can go, and it's very, very hard if you're in this space and you have your coins spread across multiple wallets or exchanges. You all know, if you have more than one exchange, you know how difficult it is to track your crypto. You know how difficult it is to not really know what your crypto doing, especially when it's pumping or dumping, and you really want to know like what's happening. And that's kind of how the idea was born of, hey, let's bring it all into one place. And, oh, by the way, let's marry it with an exit plan. So we're not just tracking crypto. Anybody can track crypto, and other apps out there. But what we do is give you a tool that lets you take your crypto and create an exit plan for it, so that if you want to day trade it or swing trade it or hodl it, the nice thing is once it starts hitting those exit targets, you don't have to sit here and watch it every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Abs, I had people telling me that they were checking their phones 20 times a day during the bull run. And you know why I know it's true?
I was one of them.
And me too. Exactly.
Same. I didn't sleep. No sleep.
Jenna, exactly. Tell me how nervous you guys were. Let's talk about this for a minute. So this is weird. Like, everybody loves the bull run. They get excited, right? I hated the bull run. I hated it. I'll tell you why. Because when it was pumping, I had to go get my Excel spreadsheet going. I had to put in prices, try to figure out what the hell's going up. How much am I making? Do I want to sell it? Do I not want to sell it? I didn't know what the hell my account was doing. So I ended up liking bear markets because I'm like, well, it don't matter. I know I'm right down. It's red. Shit, I'm just going to buy more. Until now. Now, when you got Merlin, we put it in the hands of people, and I asked them, hey, what do you love about it? And they love the fact that they don't have to check the market 20 times a day. They have their free time. The most important thing when you talk to people and you say, what's the most important thing to you besides your health? The next thing they'll usually say besides family is time. Nobody has enough time, right? Well, that's what Merlin does. We give you your time back. You get in there, you set up your account, you set your exit targets, and now that's it. You're done. You don't have to worry. And if you're like Sean or Coach, BDF, whatever his name is there, and you want to day trade or swing trade, that's it. Set your price, forget it, and you'll get the alert from Merlin. We'll say, yep, your price was hit. And in fact, we do one better. We tell you before your price is hit. We're like, hey, we're getting close to your price. We give you like an early warning indicator to say you're about 10% away. Get ready, because we know how quick it can go through. So I'm
Johnny,
excited.
if I can jump in here. Another aspect of what you're talking about that I think is unique. For me, it wasn't necessarily about, did it reach my price target? Because I had limit orders set, right? I think the biggest thing for me with the exit plan is sticking to the targets a year in advance, 9 months in advance, 6 months in advance, where when we get these, like, for example, let's talk about XRP. A lot of people are fans here. XRP, when we went to $1.90 during the bull run in 2021, the narrative was not that that's the highest we're going to see for the next 2 years. The narrative was this is the beginning. And so I think those same narratives are going to happen next time around, where let's say Ethereum goes to $10,000. From that point, the narrative is going to be we're just getting started. When the real investors know that we've already 10x from our $1,000 price target in the bottom of the bear market. So Jenna, Gonzo, Mario, Johnny, whoever wants to jump in. Somebody's got to jump in.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say you bring up a good point. I was about about exit prices and stuff like that. Like it's just like maybe it's just because I'm more real, but I've already seen on Twitter, right, crypto Twitter. Like I've seen exit prices for XRP that it's going $112, and I'm like, bro, we couldn't even break $1. Like, can we break $1 first before we start talking about $112? And it's just there to just kind of run on your emotions. And like Coach said before, like, hey, if you're a long-term investor and you're buying and you're holding this thing for way down in the future, then that's great. You do that. But a lot of people are buying this to pull some type of profit when it hits a certain point. For everybody, it's going to be a different point, right? Everybody's got a number, though. There's going to be a number that hits that's going to say, hey, it's time for me to pull profits. And then, like Johnny was saying, Merlin makes it real easy, right? Because you can go ahead and set those and then just forget about it. And when they hit, you just have to execute your plan. right? And not get sucked up into the emotion when things are starting to go. Like you're saying, when people start saying this thing's going to go up forever, that's a signal for the top, right? That's a signal for you to be pulling profits so that when we go into a bear market, and we will go into a bear market, you go back in, right? You go back in as close to the bottom as you can, and then we do this thing all over again.
I completely agree with you, Johnny. And sorry, I know Johnny's unmuted. I want to give a shout out to Quincy as well. Quincy, feel free to come up and talk. We'd love to hear from you, my friend. But Johnny, floor is yours, and then I'll continue.
Yeah, that's awesome. Quincy in the house, Jenna in the house. What a night. But something that's so important about the thing that I think an exit plan, and why I'm excited about why we put this in Merlin Abs, two things. One, when you create your exit plan, you can actually see your profits. We've designed it so when you create your exit strategy, it shows you your profit per price point that you choose, and it shows you your tax liability, what you're going to owe in taxes. So those are really two very powerful things that help people figure out, what they're gonna make and how much they're gonna pay in taxes. But there's a third thing it does, and probably the most important. Okay, it creates discipline. So for me, I'll tell you a story. When we first started creating exit strategies and we started doing it in spreadsheets, we created the app for the 3T Academy, and not the app, but we created the spreadsheet. And I remember I gave Coach, the one for him that he could share with everybody. So he created his own. And he told the story where, he was about ready, something hit his price target, and he's about ready to sell, and then he wasn't going to sell. And then he said, you know what? I created the freaking plan. I'm going to stick to it. And he sold. And well, the funny thing was the same thing happened to me when Cardano hit all-time highs. I had it as, on my target. One of my targets was one of the prices there. And so I was excited, and I needed to sell. And I put the order in. I had it on the keyboard, and I couldn't hit the enter button. I couldn't. Because this market controls us emotionally, and if you guys come and join the 3T Academy, you'll see the course we put together that teach you how the game is played. It's designed to play on our emotions. I couldn't hit the sell button, Abs. It was so hard because my mind kept telling me, no, stupid, don't sell. It's going to keep going up.
And Johnny, it's important to keep in mind, it's like a relative, right? I know the relationship you have with Cardano, it's so close. It's like a son. So clicking the sell button, it's a different journey for you.
This freaking guy. So anyway, I couldn't hit the sell button. And then the words resonated in my head. Coach said, you know what? I made an exit plan and I'm going to stick to it. And those words resonated with me. I said, you know what? I'm doing the same thing. I made an exit plan. I'm going to stick to it. And I did. And I hit the enter button. I sold it. And it went up a little bit after that. And I was a little resentful, right? And myself at first. But then you know what happened next, Abs? That freaking son bitch dropped 90% on the backside, and now I look like a hero. I was like, damn, I look like a genius. I sold that shit near the top, and that thing's sitting 90% down. And I was thankful that I stuck to my exit plan because in the long run, you're going to win because you ladder out. You don't sell it all, and you don't sell it at one price point. You have multiple price points on the way up. So if you hit a couple, great. If you don't, that's okay. You hold on to it for the next run. And that's the beautiful thing of it. And what creating an exit plan does now, it forces you to discipline yourself. You got to say to yourself, if your price target, if you get that text from Merlin and it says, hey, you've hit your first price target, you know what? Go in there and sell. Because that's what you set. You set it for a reason. And I was so happy that I sold Cardano because now it came down 90%. And now it's sitting on a decent amount of money that I could go back and buy more if I want. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely, Johnny. And if I can I want to say, if we can provide some value here, one of the things people get confused about when we talk about an exit plan, it doesn't mean you're selling all of your tokens. So for my exit plan in particular, I copy what Blockchain Backer does. And I use the word copy on purpose because I literally took his exit strategy and used it for my own portfolio. And so what he does is he'll sell 65% of his projects during a bull run. Let's say XRP reaches these drastically high price targets, $12, $27. Even in the best case scenario, I'm holding 35% of my tokens regardless of what price targets we reach. That allows me to capitalize on the bull run while also securing a bag for if we do have a moment that we go up forever, right? So a couple different ways you can leverage yourself here, but I see we got Jalen up here as well. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I just popped up into the space, so I always request. I just wanted to say thanks, Jenna, for having me in here. Everybody else. I've been in XRP for a little bit for myself. There's so much going on, especially with the BRICS. I just wanted to ask, what do you guys think about the BRICS situation, and do you guys think these countries will be using XRP as the currency?
So, Johnny, I'm going to kick it to Mario and Gonzo here, but I do want to say I feel like they're separate conversations in a way. And one conversation can be had about what BRICS is doing, and another conversation can be had about whether they're going to use distributed ledger technology and XRP or XDC and so on. So, Johnny, I'd love to give you a chance to speak, and I'll give my take after.
So, Abs, we talk about this all the time on the Good Morning Crypto Show. And guys, thank you for joining the spaces tonight. You're all invited to come up and chat. This is for you guys as well. This isn't just about us. So please raise your hand, come on up. We'd love to hear from you, whether you got a question or a comment. It's all good. And more importantly, if you haven't signed up for Merlin, get on the wait list, www.merlincrypto.com, 30 days free. So you can try it out before you before you actually have to pay for it. So let us know. But Abs, this is a very hot topic. We are living through a time that none of us, not a single person in this spaces, knows what it's like to well, I mean, if you live in the U.S., to what it's like to not live in the world where the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. Okay, now we've exceeded the 100-year average that every country tends to be the world reserve currency, and we're past that now. We're losing that status, and it's going to go over to China or maybe a basket of currencies, right? We don't know. But that's just happening. We're seeing the chess pieces in place. We're moving from a place where the U.S. was the world reserve currency to now the BRIC nations putting a process in place and an alternative solution in place now that the dollar is practically dead and, in tons of debt and on its way out, where a new solution, a new alternative will exist. Okay? Now, that's not going to be a cryptocurrency out the gate. You have to knock the world reserve currency off its plate. You're not going to do it, in my opinion, with a cryptocurrency. XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, none of those are going to be the world. It's all this talk, they're going to be the world reserve currency. I don't believe that. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm entitled to my opinion just the way everybody else is to theirs. So my opinion is no. We're not going to see, sorry to burst everybody's bubble. And by the way, XRP is my biggest holding, so I don't want to hear people be like, Johnny hates XRP. No, I love it. But the reality is, do I believe that a cryptocurrency that the whole world is fearful of is going to replace the single most trusted monetary source in the world? Hell no. I don't see that happening. I think what's going to happen is they'll make a push for a basket of currencies, either, of the BRIC currencies, Brazil, Russia, China, the yuan. Those will all be a basket, and that'll be proposed as the world reserve currency to knock out the dollar, to say that a single country shouldn't be in control of the world reserve. It's a global entity. We should have a mixed basket, so no one country can penalize another country, blah, 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 blah. You're going to hear all that. And then they're going to say, oh, by the way, we're going to back it by gold.
Well, let me ask you this, Johnny. I know you're on a hot streak right here, but what do you think about the EU and the United States eventually joining what BRICS is doing and saying, okay, we understand that you're in position to be the global dominance when it comes to currency. Let's get 40% of that basket in the US dollar in the EU. What do you think about that?
Yes, I do think somehow, some way, when that new basket is created, okay, as a proposal to knock out the dollar, I think the dollar will be, maybe there'll be some negotiation, and the dollar will be a part of that basket. I think that has a lot more likely chance. And then maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the road, when that whole basket's backed by gold, they say, hey, you know what? Whole world is digital now. Maybe they switch it over to being backed by a digital currency or something. I mean, it will be digital. Don't get me wrong. It might be a digital basket of currencies. And what's it going to run on? That's what we need to see. But I still think that's going to be many years away. So that's my 8 cents. I'm curious what other people in the group think.
Mario and Gonzo, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I agree with Johnny. I don't think that a cryptocurrency per se right now will be used as a world reserve currency. I'm more intrigued along the lines of, will a blockchain technology be utilized for this system that they're creating? And they could potentially just create their own crypto or currency, right? I was looking over at the BRICS Pay website, and they reference the word decentralized. So, I mean, decentralized to me, obviously, it always comes back to blockchain. So I'm interested to see what comes out from there. I tried doing some research. I spent some time trying to see if I could tie a connection to any blockchain, but I could not find anything. So,
And I'm not surprised, Mario. They got enough hurdles just to be able to knock out the dollar as a regular currency, let alone adding in the uncertainty of a cryptocurrency. I just don't see it happening. But yeah, man,
I
we
have
could
some
get
interesting stats about China today I feel like are worth noting too. A lot of people act like China becoming the dominant superpower. It's a given right now. But if you look at the economics, it's very different than people portray it as. So these are some cool stats that I found. I'm bringing these off the top of the head. So just don't hold me too accountable here. But one of the things that I noticed is that buying power for the US dollar is diminishing by the day, but it's happening with other currencies around the world. And when you look at the yuan, the average Chinese citizen is 64th globally when it comes to buying power. That means there are 63 countries in the world where the average citizen has more money than the average Chinese citizen. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They're also running into a labor issue where 20% of people age 15 to 25 are not working right now, whereas in America, that number, well, we don't employ children 15 to 18, but 18 to 25, it's only about 7%. So there's a big difference in job opportunities, and there's a big difference in money to be made. It's pretty much you're wealthy or you're poor in China, and I don't think a lot of people even mention that. So do you guys have any thoughts there?
You're actually spot on there. That's pretty much when I've been there many times for work, and it's very wealthy. It's very, very poor. There is a rise of the middle class out there because the U.S. decided to shift all its manufacturing out there. So the middle class should thank every single American in Americas for that happening. But you said something that's interesting. You said they have the 64th buying power or something like that. Yep. But that's not what's significant. What would be interesting, and you're a sleuth, so I know you're good. Go do the research and go find out what the trend looks like. That's more important. So what were they a year ago? What were they 5 years ago? What were they 10 years ago?
All right, let me give you a little rabbit hole information here, Johnny. So ironically enough, I looked it up, and what they compared China's economy to was Japan in the 1980s, a manipulated currency that was increasing in value only because of the manipulation happening at the banks. In China right now, there are 65 million homes that are vacant. So there's literally 65 million properties that are sitting empty, but they're continuing to build. So that's what I'm talking about when it's fake economy. They're building these huge apartment buildings with no intention of housing people.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's crazy.
Oh, man. Dude, I've been there. They're ghost towns. They're literally ghost cities. They build these
condos. Like,
go ahead, Jalen. Floor is yours.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to say, like, add on to what he was saying. Like, yeah, they're literally building condos and apartments everywhere, and nobody's living in them. Like, it's crazy.
I actually heard they built a replica of Paris for everything. So the Eiffel Tower is the exact same. Every road is the exact same way. And the whole thing is unpopulated right now. So you're right, Jalen. I have heard about these ghost cities. But I'm wondering, Johnny, is that just to prop up fake economic growth? Or is there something bigger going on here?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, are they going to inject so, like, people just get rich off crypto or something, and then they have all this money to go buy new condos and stuff? Like, they're not just building for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, money's going to get injected somewhere. Like, these people are smart businessmen. They're just not building stuff to just go bankrupt with it.
Well, I'll give you the other side of the coin to that. They're definitely not building it so people who get rich off crypto can live there. You have to understand how the world works. If you are in control of other people's money and you want to put it in your pocket, what's the best way to do that? Go create government funding, government jobs, government-built housing. Then you basically pay companies to go build these things that are going to sit there vacant. But you don't give a crap because you paid your buddy,
hey Johnny, can I hop
who
in
owns
there?
the construction company, who owns the construction company, right? And he's getting 20, 30,
1 second,
$40 million.
Quincy. Johnny, we got Quincy up here. I'd love to give you a chance to speak, Quincy. Floor is yours, bro.
Yeah, go ahead, my man.
So someone asked, and let me just confirm this real quick. Why the hell are they just randomly building these homes in China? Was that it?
Yes.
It's actually a hilarious reason, and it's kind of Well, it's one of those reasons why communism doesn't work. But basically, what's happening is, so what ends up happening is they end up judging their economic growth based off of sort of the same way that we do, based off of how many different things are being built, things are consumed, all of that. But what ends up happening is, since the state controls sort of the economic growth, what ends up happening is each one of these officers that manage these almost like providences have a certain quota in terms of how much growth they can have. So literally, they are literally building homes just to meet a quota so they can look like they're hitting certain economic growth numbers. And this is actually really
Holy.
funny because you'll end up seeing home cities that are built out of nowhere, and then you'll see like the prices of the homes go like to the moon because they're like creating their own false demand off of these quotas, and then there's only a finite supply of houses. So these houses that were never inhabited ended up jumping up in value because there's less and less houses and there's more and more demand because there's certain quotas that need to be hit for this economic growth number. And it's actually hilarious. Yeah, they're building
It's
houses
smart as fuck.
to hit these quotas so they know, because they get penalized. They get really harshly penalized for not hitting certain quotas. It's like, why are you not, like, it doesn't matter if people buy or whatever the homes, they're still trying to make sure they hit these growth quotas. And yeah, and I'm telling you, it's the exact same thing that like destroyed the farmers back in during like the Cold War with like Mao. It's the exact same sort of thing. They just keep doing it. And what the thing with the farmers is they would tell them that they had food and they need to meet these quotas, but they didn't. So they would even give the food that the farmers need to eat, and then the farmers starved, and then for no more farmers because like the farmers gave away their food to hit the quota. It's exactly like that, but with these homes, and it's basically just it's a terrible incentives. That's essentially what these are. Terrible incentives. They're not real market incentives. They're these artificial incentives that are placed by the government so they can hit these special numbers so they can compete on a global scale based off X, Y, and Z. And they're saying you must hit these numbers or else, that or else can be a demotion, that or else can be, legal trouble penalties, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or else. So yeah, you basically have these like really silly incentives that are just literally building houses out in the middle of nowhere just for the sake of building them so they can say they built them, just to hit these like these government quotas. It's kind of obnoxiously stupid.
That's insane. Honestly.
Yeah, and it's really sad because that's all money that is being wastefully spent on a false proposition, which I'm sure is enriching themselves and their buddies, when that money could be put to use in other countries. But again, America chose to outsource everything to China, and now they got an abundance of money, and of course they're wasting it away, and it's really, really sad to see that happen. But that is just the reality of how the world works, boys. It is very stupid, but also very real. And the more you know about how that works, the world, how corrupt it can be and stupid and falsely it's run, I think the better it is, so you can just protect your own investments or think of how where you want to invest, where does it make sense, and knowing the game, obviously you can avoid getting played. So anyway, thanks for popping up, Quincy. Good to hear you, buddy. How you doing?
It's been chill, man. Just kind of hopping around different spaces, kind of working on some stuff, hanging out.
Yeah,
anything big or new that you're working on, Quincy? Anything you're excited about?
Sorta. So, what I'm excited about, what I'm working on, are two different things. So, which one would you rather hear?
Let's go with what you're excited about first.
Well, I'm excited about going to Austin for the first ever XCC convention. That's gonna be cool. In contrast to going to the XRP Vegas event, I can't wait to really see what it's like to hang out with the XCC community in a sense. And just going to events are sort of fun. So it's sort of like its own little like mini party.
It's always more fun when you get to meet people in person. And one of the things I was shocked by at XRP Las Vegas was how personable and similar everyone was. And I'm sure you're going to experience something similar at the XDC event, where you get around people from the same crypto community, and coincidentally, they have the same like-mindedness that you do. So I found that to be really interesting.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So what are you working on? There's the follow-up.
Yeah. So one thing is actually hilarious because sort of like in this weird good news, bad news thing, especially now talking about it. So for a while, I've actually been working on I guess you could sort of say an app based in crypto. And ideally, I was focusing on retail just to be able to offer them certain services. And I actually just pivoted my project from focusing on retail to focusing on institutions. And you may be going, what? Wow. And I ended up building out this whole app, this whole like user-based application. It was sort of like a software wallet in a sense, but had a lot of other features to it. But I just pivoted because just off having like 2 or 3 trade partners for what I'm trying to do, I'd make like 10x the amount of money that I would for like having 100,000 users.
That's interesting, Quincy. So speak a little more to the specifics. What exactly does your app facilitate?
So originally, it was focusing on being able to provide access to blockchain services and dApps for users. So ideally, a user would have some sort of subscription to be able to interact with different dApps and interact with different blockchain applications without actually having to utilize crypto themselves, as well as being able to facilitate trade services and as well able to facilitate some basic dApps right off the bat, like a few social media applications and a few blogs in a sense, just to be able to facilitate this atmosphere of applications. I was actually trying to facilitate an app store and essentially allow people to interact with blockchain apps without actually having to focus on them, or without having to hold
Wow.
crypto themselves. But what I ended up realizing, some of the services I was providing, well, one, were sort of like these. I almost called it the Cash App of crypto. Basically, you can make deposits in cash and be able to send people crypto, and people can send you cash by sending you crypto. Sort of in like if I sent 10 XTC to your Cash App account, it would show up in dollars. Services like that. And vice versa, to allow people that weren't interested in crypto to be able to interact with people who were interested in crypto. But then I realized, oh, I could do the same thing for brokers and then provide a means to forward liquidity and then just capitalize off trade volume. And literally just off of a couple $100,000 in trade volume, I'd be making way more money than I would off of thousands of users. And then millions of trade volume would be significantly more. Like it scales up in a way that, well, one, the average broker that we'd be interacting with, their trades would be in the hundreds of thousands just because it wouldn't be worth utilizing our service otherwise. But at the same time, I'm trying to create sort of like a alternative cloud platform, almost like a blockchain provider, if you want to put it, to where we will say, hey, we'll essentially operate these services for you for free, or this shared accounting mechanism for free, almost like a mixture between a cloud provider and not an underwriter, I'm blanking right now. Somewhere between a clearinghouse, a sort of a mixture between a cloud provider and a clearinghouse, and then essentially act for shared accounting and a bunch of different participants. It's actually hilarious because I was talking to what's his name, Jake Claver. He's like, dude, you do realize like if you do that, like your number one competitor would be R3. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. That's what they do. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's freaking great.
Quincy, you're going to need a personal security team after that application. That's for sure.
Yeah, I actually, after the pivot, before I was focusing on funding to be able to advertise. I don't really need funding. I just need trade partners. And I'm focusing on commodities. I don't really care about securities now. It's kind of a landmine. But I'm trying to take over commodities primarily in developing nations because they don't have the infrastructure for it. And I can provide this infrastructure as easy as it would be to provide somebody an email account. So the idea would be able to facilitate these different financial services for commodities and then act as a means for people to be able to trade. Not, like I said, trade as in like farmers being able to move those commodities to some sort of facility for processing, and then try to get these bulk trades up between different brokers and different really people in these marketplaces. I've met
That's
with a lot of
amazing.
people. I've met with a lot of people in my professional life, and I try to tell people how to do it, and they just don't know how. So the service isn't really the service; it's the fact that people don't know how to do it. So why not facilitate the service in such a way to where I do it for them, and they essentially interact with it. And like I said, it's free. They don't pay any fee. They don't pay any subscriptions or licensings or anything. It's just there's some fees off of the transactions as they engage. Sort of like how if you made a deposit into Cash App and then let's say you were some sort of broker of some sort and you were moving commodities, and you just interacted with X, Y, and Z asset to be able to move that commodity from the broker to the market to the whatever, and there's just fees based off of the engagement that way. It's kind of hilarious. Like I was literally getting ready to debut an application at at Austin, and I literally pivoted so freaking hard because I realized I'd make so much more money.
That's awesome, Quincy. I mean, first of all, when are you anticipating that you're going to launch that product?
I can already launch it. I just need trade partners to use it. Like I said, I built out this whole app for users, but I just pivoted from dApps to just really, I'm trying to be more of a cloud provider because the brokerage laws and all of that becomes very difficult. Where if I'm just facilitating the software, the accounting for people to be able to interact with these, it's a lot easier operate as. But they're all a bunch of smart contracts. I've written these contracts up to a year ago. I've written them a long time ago. I built an iOS application for users, and I built out a library to interact with dApps. And I just migrated that library from that user application. It was really like a really sophisticated software wallet, because it was a software wallet that had a DEX integrated into it, that had a library to interact with multiple dApps and an account system. So if you didn't want to use crypto, you didn't have to. And I'm like, why am I doing this for users? Just to try to charge them like a couple dollars, like, because I have to have some very basic means of revenue, and it was very difficult to justify a subscription. But then I realized, oh well, maybe I can capitalize off of fees off of transactions, but then the transaction fees would have to be really low, and even in that case, people wouldn't have the volume to justify it. And I'm like, oh my god! But at scale, I could do this with literally anybody. I don't need users to send money to their grandma to be able to take advantage of trade fees. If I can facilitate the same means of forwarding liquidity for brokers and businesses, like what the hell? Why the hell not? So yeah, I had this a whole app built out. The back end, I'm actually running it on XDC subnets and being able to forward liquidity over XDC network whenever we need additional liquidity that's not going to be within our subnet. But like, I had this whole thing built, everything all built out. So I built out the user facing application, and I literally just pivoted last week. So I'm in the middle of finishing up the administrators console, which would basically be one of me or anybody that's an administrator for this application. And we just manage all the smart contracts. There's certain keys associated with them. There's sort of like it's weird, like it's like a cloud provider. But then ideally we want to be able to onboard different, because I already have a few startups that already want to onboard, but like, it depends on trade volume, and it comes down to weird, crazy legal stuff cross country wise. This is why I'm trying to go into commodities. Commodities might be able to slip around a lot easier. But yeah, no, I had the whole infrastructure built out, this whole user facing application, and I was going to present it and do this whole thing. And I was literally going to even have a thing to where I had like a QR code on the board, and I scanned it, and then a dApp would pop up, and you'd be able to interact with it on your phone. You can do this with multiple dApps. I had this whole thing lined up, and really at the same time, I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to monetize this? Like, it's not really, I can offer these services for free, but if I did that, I can get users and I don't really make any money, and then I can do the trade volume thing. And I did want to be able to offer like tokenized like securities, like people are able to, like I said, there was a swap, there was a DEX, there were all these different components. And I realized I built out a suite of tools for blockchain, but I didn't really build out a product. And the product would essentially define like, what are people using this for, as opposed to a whole haphazard set of tools operating together to allow for a hypothetical set of use cases. Like I said, like, we want to build dApps, but what dApps are there? Most dApps are contrived finance instruments that are either DAOs or some sort of random token that generates some random return. We were trying to focus on like social media platforms or blogs or like a cooking app or even like a language learning app. I built a vocabulary app, like, you can learn vocabulary and just hold little things. There are these little things, and it was just, you can't build every app in the app store, but that's what we were trying to facilitate. And I'm like, but at the same time, we have these trade services that are just so simple and so easy to use. The means of forwarding liquidity for a regular user into crypto is one thing, but being able to forward liquidity from a broker into some sort of commodity or some sort of asset is a whole nother thing. It's the same process code wise. So I literally like and flipped around real quick and realized I've got to do something different here. But on the other hand, things are looking insane right now in terms of, like I said, I have everything built out. I just need trade partners. I need two people that want to engage over this accounting mechanism to just use the accounting mechanism. And there you go. I'm ready to go. Like, it's kind of.
If I can find them for you, can I help?
What was that?
I said, if I can find them for you, can I help?
Sure, I'll give you a finder's fee too, man. Literally, like, I just need it's a free shared accounting system. Now, there's a few things I'm trying to work out just quick, because, like I said, in terms of, originally I was thinking about operating as a broker for users, and it was almost going to be like this very sophisticated version of sort of Robinhood, but at the same time, we can offer a whole slew of applications as a dApp store, and then you can invest in those dApps based off of there's a whole economy of how applications I was originally thinking. But as that broker, there's a lot of regulatory hurdles. So the biggest thing is how do I completely, because operating with having two people use the accounting system is one thing, but making sure I don't get like persecuted because I'm acting as like we're almost acting as a clearinghouse in some regards. But like I said, we're only facilitating the software for these different trades. So
You're worried
there's
about Gary Gensler.
a
You're worried
little
about
bit, a
I don't
tiny
blame
bit.
you. I don't blame you.
I don't want to be accused of operating as a brokerage when we're only operating as a tech stack. And that's the weird thing about these, because these tech stacks can operate brokerage services almost programmatically without me actually being a broker. It's just a software. But
Yeah.
this don't get me wrong, this is actually the best case scenario. The other scenario where, because when we're working with these applications, we're like, well, what happens if someone creates? I actually had a really amazing conversation with Daniel from Casino Coin about this. This was freaking great. But I had this whole conversation. I'm like, well, what would happen if we host an app store and 50% of the apps are autonomous applications? Who's responsible? And it turns into like this whole notion of, well, if we're the ones providing access to the applications and these things are fully autonomous, there's a possibility where liability can fall on us, which could basically be liability for any app at any time for anyone, because this could be apps being frauds, apps getting hacked. We wouldn't want to be the ones liable for people using them simply because we allow access, because they're autonomous applications. There's no someone Satoshi did. There's no one else to hold liable for it, even though it was a weird question. It was a weird question, and it would have created infinite liability for us. And in this regard, it's a little bit different, where we can essentially very much choose our liabilities. And like I said, it's mostly just focused around us operating as a tech stack. Like I said, almost like a cloud provider. We are AWS to the NASDAQ, because AWS or the NASDAQ runs on AWS. But like I said, AWS has a lot of very core like features into it that very much separate it as a service, where these features haven't really been these features haven't been separated before. Like any other business that would provide these services would be considered a broker, but these are entirely programmatic. Like we're facilitating the service, but we're trying to say that it's a software, not a brokerage service. It's not the biggest of deals. Like I'm pretty sure we can like follow a lot of the rules. But like I said, it's that definition of being a software provider, and
Thank
it's gonna
you,
be weird
Quincy.
too. Oh yeah, sorry.
I just want to get a quick reminder in here, guys. If you want to speak, please just raise your hand and we can bring you up. This is an open forum for everybody. And Quincy, thank you so much for being here. Johnny, I know you've been unmuted for a while. We also got Lukey in here. But I also want to remind our listeners, check out Merlin. That's who this space is sponsored by. Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto. And you get 30 days absolutely free. So you got nothing to lose. Go sign up, check out the product, and give us some feedback. Johnny, I'm going to go to you, and then we'll go to Lukey and Quincy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's go to Luke. He's got his hand up. But Abs, how do people get there? Where do they need to go? www.merlincrypto.com to sign up for the waitlist. I do have a quick question for Quincy, though. Hey, Quincy, I just want to know, do you do freelance software work, or are you hired? Are you working for a company?
I'm starting my own company, man.
All right, let's talk offline. We'll talk offline later. But yeah, I see Lukey's got his hand up, so he's been waiting a long time. Let's go to Lukey. And Lukey, the floor is yours, my friend.
Hey guys, how you going? I really appreciate the opportunity to get up on the floor. I just wanted to jump in because I have 3 questions, and I was actually in a space earlier on with Mr. I, and Quincy jumped in there. And Quincy, I just got to say, man, you just rocked that space, because there was all this crap being spoken, and you just came in and just laid the law down and just laid it out so well. And just in my opinion anyway, you just really put truth to that whole narrative around building on XRPL, and just your comments there, and what you said and what you're talking about, and what the purpose of XRP is. I couldn't I just fully 100% believe. So just really wanted to say thanks for that. And I have a specific question, or a couple actually. First of all, as somebody that's been an investor in crypto for a long time, I'm trying to transition into an innovator, an adopter, somebody bringing real world use cases to the blockchain. And I've got an idea, and I'm a salesperson. Like I'm a front facing, person. I'm not a dev builder. First question is, how do you know which chain, how do you select which chain to build on? And then how do you go about turning that into a reality? Now, obviously, a person with the skills that you have, obviously, that's what we need to find. But how do you make that link? And then the second question is, how do I invest in you, bro? Because, man, you got to be the in my opinion, that would be the smartest move ever. So, yeah, shout out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so in terms of the first part of the question, what chain do you decide to like work on? The best way I would look at it is there's two parts. There's sort of like the technical capabilities, like what sort of tools are provided for you to be able to build on those chains, whatever that is. And that's sort of like a really like technical specific question. So depending on what you're trying to build will determine what tools you use. Uh, but the second part of it is why would you choose that chain? And there's probably going to be some other dApps or some other services on that chain that you like that you're probably going to use on top of that. These could be DEXs, these can be NFT marketplaces, these could be dApps, whatever. Because there's going to be some level of like activity or already established user base or whatever that you're going to be able to utilize. Like I said, if there's a DEX, then you have liquidity to that DEX. If it's a marketplace, then you can provide services to access that marketplace or people can interact with whatever. Or if it's another dApp, you can delegate services from that dApp and use it in your application. And that's that dApp specific to that network or whatever. Now, how do you like materialize that? I think so. I always hear this because people always think of things through a like software developer like lens, but you say you're a salesperson. So I think the best way you would go about this is like it's almost like the classic like startup business thing where obviously you would have to sort of put together your own Avengers or A team or whatever. But if you can articulate what type of service you're trying to provide and you sort of need a little bit of like a medium to high resolution means of being able to articulate how this would look. Otherwise, it gets obscenely expensive in terms of trying to have somebody else trying to put together a lot of these pieces. But if you can have an understanding of the network, the tech, just enough to be able to articulate what you're trying to do, I think that's sort of how you go about it. Is because I see a lot of people do this. I've seen more people like this than I do developers. Like I'm the anomaly. There are not very many developers that sort of jump into these things and sort of jump. A lot of them are just like day in, day out, your day job, whatever, don't care. And that's how most people are. But there are a ton of people out there that aren't developers that build a lot of different things. Actually, one of them, you guys probably know him, Johnny Garcia. He's pretty big in the space. He has his project Housebank. That guy was not a developer when I met him. He was just like, dude, I'm just like about to just learn Solidity just to try. And he just did it just to be able to learn enough to talk to some other developers to tell them exactly what he's trying to do. And he's doing amazing right now. He's probably one of the biggest guys I've seen go from just a regular person talking about crypto to like being a very like big person in the space with his own project. He's pretty involved in PLI. He does a lot of stuff. He's not a developer in any. I mean, maybe now he's a little bit. You consider himself more developer like. But when I first met him, he was just like some guy with a plan, like some guy with a dream and a plan to make it happen. And I see more people like that than I do developers. So if you can know enough about these different technologies to articulate how you want to go about building them, and I think the biggest thing would turn into sort of sales. How do you get people to come together to join you and build whatever you're trying to build? Even me myself, like as a developer, I get sort of an advantage of being able to just code things myself. But I'm not like a business person. I don't like know how to set up meetings. Even now, I'm trying to get trade partners. I'm like, okay, I actually have like a good connection with a lot of different people in XTC. But even now, I'm like, okay, how do I like talk to trade partners about taking out like their different license for some other accounting and utilizing it? It's a whole like skill set. And if you have that skill set, master that skill set and take it and take that as far as you can, and then find other people you can recruit to be able to help fill the deficits in what your project may be.
Yeah, if I can chime in there, I think that's a great question. And, I can relate a lot when I've created several businesses. And first one was a fantasy sports company. And now, of course, this one being Merlin. And, so you say you're a salesperson, right? And I'm not a salesperson. I'm an engineer, but I'm not a software engineer. I'm more of a hardware engineer. So what I did was when I formed the company, the key is you start with, first you have to have an idea. You got to put that idea together, put it down on a piece of paper, put it in a presentation, put out what the problem is that you're trying to solve, how you're solving it differently than somebody else is doing, why it makes sense. What are your differentiators? What are you doing to make it better, cheaper? And then you talk to friends, family, coworkers, people that you trust. That maybe if it's a developing thing, maybe you go talk to some people that you have friends that are in the developing space and see if they want to be a part of it. Don't be afraid to offer them a part of your company, some equity in it, so they have skin in the game. Pitch the idea to people you trust and only you trust, and you bring them into your circle. And that's how I actually formed Merlin, bringing in all the different elements. You need marketing, you need advertising, you need development if you're a software company, right? So you need all the different pieces, finance, customer support. You need all those pieces, but you You start with first getting the idea on paper so you can pitch it to people so people can follow it and see if they want to be a part of it. And and actually what's cool about it is when you're putting it on paper and you're building it, it forces you to make sure you're doing the homework and the research to see, what's my market size? How big is the space? How fast is it growing? What problem am I solving? How many people are doing it? What are they charging for? Just so much that goes into it. Just having the idea is a start, but acting on it and cultivating it and building it into a real business, that takes a lot. That's a huge Herculean effort, and it can be done. But those are some ideas, at least just to give you some thoughts of how do you get started. That's kind of where you start. Start with putting it on paper, start laying out the idea, and then start pitching it to friends. And you'll be surprised. You're running into somebody that says, "Oh, I know somebody else." And the next thing you know, you're becoming friends with that person. You're talking to them. You're sharing an idea, and the next thing you know, you're business partners. So that's just one suggestion of how you.
No, that's all great advice, guys. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I suppose to articulate a little bit, I'm in the property industry in Australia, in real estate, and yeah, I have started that process, and I'm probably just at that crossroads because I've always been an XRP, follower. It's my biggest holding. Naturally, I'm just like, I'm going to put this on the XRPL, but I've started to question whether it's really made for that. And your comments in the earlier space, Quincy, really sort of honed into me there. And I'm like, you know what? My gut feeling says that it's not the right ledger. It's not what it's for. It's not about liquidity. And, so yeah, but that's cool. I really appreciate that, guys. So my second question there, how do we
Wait,
invest in
Lukey,
you?
really quick, before we move on, I'd love for Quincy to elaborate on that because I wasn't able to catch that spaces with Mr. Intuitive earlier. So can you briefly explain what you're talking about? Either one of you, Quincy or Lukey.
I didn't catch what he said. What was it? What was it you were referencing from the previous space?
It was the whole liquidity conversation, and Quincy chimed in and really brought it back to what the XRPL is about, because it was all about NFTs and other
yes, I remember
use
what you're
cases.
talking about. Yes, so there was sort of like this there was this questioning of confidence in XRP because people were going, oh, this network has NFTs and this network has this and this network has butt token and DAO token or whatever. And I basically just brought it back around to one of the biggest things that makes XRP really special is the fact that one, the network's indexed, and two, it has a means of maximizing liquidity with its rippling algorithm as well as a bunch of other tools. So people are sort of literally comparing apples and oranges based on the notion that this network is doing this or this is happening on this network, as opposed to acknowledging and complementing the strength that these different networks have. And I think people sort of look at everything through a general network sense where people look at it as points, and whatever network has the most points, a very specific thing. It's almost like you almost look at this like an RPG game. People are looking at what networks have the most average stats across. And if you're average across and you have the most points across, that's good. But anyone who's really played a really good RPG game, you might have somebody who's out of 100, 10 across, then maybe 100 on Magic or whatever. They're super freaking OP in that domain, insanely OP in that domain, almost can't compete. And it's almost sort of like that, where you're not going to get these general networks. You're going to get these networks that are able to specialize, and they may specialize in different things. One may have a stat on liquidity, or one may have a stat on smart contract. It may be sort of different, and how people are able to play with those different stats based on what they're good at are going to be a lot different from each other. So it's one of those things where I'm like, people are sort of going, oh no, because there aren't XRP marketplaces on XRP like there are on whatever network. XRP's out of the race outside of going XRP's super stacked in terms of its ability to operate as some level of neutral exchange currency and operating as a means of being able to maximize liquidity between potentially illiquid assets. That's really its strength. And this is with XDC. I'm like, look, we're not even trying to do that. That's why I'm trying to tell you that one of these strengths that no other network can compete with is that. Now, obviously, there are other tools like smart contracts, marketplaces, DAOs, DEXs, all these other things, but these things can be maxed out in different ways. And they aren't even going to be maxed out in the same way. Even if two networks had very similar statistics, they may be using it differently. Let's say one, has a 70 on Magic, and the other one has a 10 on Strength. Excuse the RPG references. I've been playing the hell out of Elden Ring and really trying to get my intelligence through the roof. I love Magic in that game, hell yeah. But anywho, the biggest thing is you may have different networks that may have very similar stats, but they may be stacked in certain things, and they may use them totally differently. So maybe on paper, you may go, oh, this network's totally better than this network, but you may go, oh, but this network's facilitating this type of engagement, and it's operating in this way, and this network's facilitating this type of engagement, and it operates in this way. And these stats that are focused on these things don't compare when you're focusing on their individual domains that they're good at. Yeah, they're not doing the same thing, so it's weird to sort of judge them like they are.
So, Quincy, I'd love for you to elaborate just a little bit more. When you talk about making illiquid assets liquid, explain that to somebody who doesn't understand.
So I guess the best way I could sort of put it is when you're dealing with so technically with XRP, you don't need liquidity pools like you would traditionally need, because the network has a software that maximizes the means of being able to pull liquidity from the network. The network is a DEX, so it's almost like there's an algorithm, a routing algorithm that essentially allows for people to be able to interact with these assets that would otherwise be siloed to these individual liquidity pools that would have to be fined and have to be maintenance to be able to provide a certain trade volume. So traditionally, let's say there was a liquidity pool with $100 in it, and $100 XRP, $100 in it, whatever. You would only be able to withdraw so much money from that liquidity pool because that's how big that pool is. Well, with the XRP ledger, you're able to maximize liquidity for any asset listed on the network. So you're technically operating at maximum liquidity for any asset because you don't have to go to an individual pool. There's a routing algorithm that maximizes that. So every bit of that asset that is for sale on the network can be bought and sold rather than individual pools based off individual brokers, individual exchanges, individual OTCs, whatever, to be able to facilitate that. And that's saying if you're like big broker.
So Quincy, let me ask you. So the purpose being, obviously, if all that liquidity is there, is the point there so that that doesn't drive the price up as you're, pulling in and dropping off liquidity?
No, the point is at any given point, you could be able to exchange one asset for another asset. Without liquidity, you don't have exchange. And if you don't have exchange, you might have volatility. But if you're not able to make those exchanges because no one's able to actually be able to, like, someone could have an asset for the same price that you're willing to buy it, but it's not in the liquidity pool you're engaging with right now. It may be, perfect example would be if you go to Robinhood and Robinhood has some, X amount of liquidity for assets that can be bought. And let's say, and maybe they're pulling from the same exchange, maybe they're pulling from different exchanges, but let's say some other broker, some other exchange is also referencing the same asset. They have two different sized liquidity pools in terms of how many assets and how much volume they can facilitate. Imagine if that just wasn't the case and all of that one asset that was available can all be accessed through the same means rather than having to go to different entities to be able to access to those. It's weird to be able to access to those assets. You see what I mean? Oh God.
But the question I have is, so let's say Bank of America is using the XRPL and they want to do transacting overseas, right? Somebody wants to send their money overseas. The question I have for you is does Bank of America have to sit on a pool of XRP liquidity, or because they're leveraging the ODL, is the liquidity sitting on the ODL and it's a system that says, okay, you need 1 million XRP, here it is, and then you convert it to whatever you need in the other side, and then it becomes another. So that in other words, Bank of America doesn't need to sit on that 1 million of XRP liquidity, or that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Where is that?
So it's almost like you're looking at neutral trade volume. So what ends up happening is, let's say you had $1 million. This is a perfect example, right? Let's say you had $1 million in USD, right, here in the United States, and somebody else in some other country has, a house for sale in Japan, house for sale for $1 million in yen. Cool. Well, traditionally, there would be liquidity pools in USD and yen, and you would have to access those pools to be able to transact into yen and be able to make your purchase. Now, what ends up happening is this is sort of the cool thing about XRP, and there's a few ways that this ends up happening. So one, instead of every asset being paired with every asset in theory is paired with XRP. So you go from the asset dollars into XRP into Japanese yen. So whatever liquidity there is for any dollars and for any yen will be there in XRP. So any sort of XRP that's essentially being used at any given time would be used for two reasons. One, for current trade volume, and two, for the means of being able to for the means to be able to interact with capital between participants that would otherwise not have the native currency that you're interacting with. So either A, you could use the rippling algorithm and go from whatever liquidity there is from USD to Japanese yen to fulfill that payment. Or you could just buy a bunch of XRP and just make the payment in XRP because they'll get it in, or you can transact it in yen, or at the very least they can get it and transact it into whatever they want. But the biggest thing is traditionally you would have to go through different entities that would provide pools for you to be able to have access to the liquidity of that additional asset to trade with. Where here you just use the network software.
And
Yeah,
you're
so the
talking that
pool,
this is only on the XRPL, correct?
So yeah, in this smooth manner, yes. Every other network needs different liquidity pools and different dexes and different whatevers to be able to facilitate that. This is kind of cool with NFTs too, because this can, in theory, operate the same way with NFTs as it does with currencies.
but the question I have is, who owns the pool? Is it the central bank that's
There,
owning the pool liquidity?
it'd be whatever exchange, broker, anybody, OTC, anyone. These are
Okay.
traditional financial services. So if you go to a financial service and you say, hey, I want X amount of this asset for this much money, they're going to have some pool of assets they have access to. It may be a small pool for you. They may go to a market maker or some other exchange to access to a bigger pool. But the biggest thing is like these assets are sitting in the hands of brokerages in order for people to be able to engage with it, or exchanges to be able to engage with each other. Here on the network, you can use it as a software. And technically, you can do this with other networks too. You just have to build dApps on top of them to facilitate similar services. And those services would only be relegated to the dApp itself, not the entire network that dApp operates on.
Very cool, guys. And Johnny, I'm not sure if you had any additional comments, but
Yeah, abs, I do. The reason why I was asking this is because there's a ruling that came out, Quincy, a few weeks ago in the XRP case that said that the sales of XRP to institutions is still considered security. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, okay, so does that mean if Ripple wants to go ahead and get the XRP out there, so there's liquidity,
So I think I see the misconception. A sales contract itself so I can make a futures contract with you for oil right now. Oil is a commodity, but that future contract is a security because because the completion of the contract is upon one of the parties or both the parties. So the contract that they had in that sale is a security, but the underlying asset doesn't necessarily mean it is. Just like if I made a futures contract with you for oil.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't necessarily have to be a security. It depends on how it's pitched, right? So my question to you is: so if you think about it from a perspective of Ripple has a bunch of XRP in their escrow, if they want to get it out there so it can be leveraged and used for liquidity on the on the ODL, the question is: does it need to be purchased by institutions so that they can leverage it for these liquidity pools or over the counter or exchanges? Or is it like you said, it's just software, it's just out there and nobody needs to purchase it. If you hook up the ODL, you get access to it.
Well, I think the way you're referencing ODL as a service provided by Ripple, the rippling algorithms, the closest thing I can refer to that would be not ODL, but sort of facilitate what you're trying to describe. Now, that is something that would be on the discretion of the individual entity. But I think what's going to end up happening, this is what I'm doing actually, is institutions aren't going to give a shit about the software or anything. They just want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So you may see third parties come into play, and they actually call these gateways on the XRP ledger. Third parties come into play and act as a means for being able to tokenize assets and being able to manage XRP in the means of being able to facilitate liquidity. They take on whatever volatility risk in the price, but they'll provide fees in their services. And technically anybody could do this, but if you use a third-party service that's doing this for you, then you just get the service benefits without any of the risk of volatility. And then that service offsets that risk of volatility by fees.
Johnny Crypto, I know you got an additional comment. Floor is yours, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
No, I think that's awesome, man. Thanks for clarifying that.
Quincy, I got another question for you while we got you here. So this whole conversation started with people forging documents that stated the BIS was going to be using XRP. So let's get this out of the way. The BIS documents that were fake included XRP, but some of the real documents indicated they were building on top of ERC20. I wanted to ask you from a developer standpoint, how likely is one or the other? And if they did decide to build on Ethereum, why is that still the case if there's better, easier technology out there?
Honestly, dude, I cannot speak for the BIS. People choose their technology for this. I don't know why people use freaking Microsoft Azure. I hate that shit. People do it every day. So, like, it's one of those things where, like, people choose the technology. They may be choosing it because it's popular. They may be choosing because it's experimental. They may be choosing it because it's the future. Who knows, man?
Well, I know our CEO or CTO at least is not going to like that. He's a huge fan of Microsoft, and he's hosting this space. Just to give you a heads up, Quincy. I'm only teasing, Jeremy. I didn't know if you wanted to jump in, but is that really all you have to say, Quincy? When it comes to people continuing to choose ERC20s, do you really think that there's nothing more from a developer standpoint that would lead them to do that?
It's not even that. So you're asking me, a developer, but if you ask a freaking sales, business, whatever person, banker, they don't give a shit. They go, it's technology. It's the Wi-Fi. They don't care. They just choose whatever. If it's popular, it's name brand. This is not like a technical, this is not like a technical solution for them. This is this is something that's being done. What's the easiest, quickest way to do it? Blah 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 blah. They don't care. It's not a technical thing for them. Now you could go ask some crazy developer who's doing some really interesting thing, and they could give you some really amazing answer. But like that's really far removed from like the average businessman's adoption into any sort of technology, never let alone bit or blockchain or whatever. So yeah, it could just be because it's popular and people are talking about it, and now that they're doing it, now you're talking about it. It could literally be just that. But from like my standpoint, at least my experience with like the business world, they literally don't care. They don't care about the how brand whatever. It could be something very basic. If they factor in the fees, and even if they're getting $40 transaction fees, but they're transacting in millions of dollars, they may already factor that in their brain and go, wow, that's so amazing, and already make the business decision and not give a shit. Like I've seen so many of these different things too. So it's popular. It does whatever basic thing they want it to do. They're testing whatever. It doesn't really matter. The business decision is so far devoid from the like technical decision. And then business decisions actually influence technical decisions. So they'll choose how everything's built. But yeah, it could be. And to be honest, I see more of this stuff because I do see a lot of like really advanced technology being adopted. It's just never talked about because it's either Hyperledger, maybe a little bit of Corda. I might see like different like private EVM chains we talked about, but people only talk about like the ERC stuff and all that stuff. Like there's a zillion more stuff that's not as interesting that is being adopted as advanced technology. It just doesn't have a token associated with it, so it doesn't get anywhere near as much. Like right now, when I first dove into Corda development, I found out that there are well over like thousands of companies around the world utilizing Corda in some capacity, and a good chunk of these companies are worth billions. I'm like, holy cow, what? Like even like stuff like literally like stuff like the Nasdaq, like or literally like stuff like different like giant organizations, and that's the thing. Like I go look at that and I'm like, wow, that's huge adoption, but no one would ever know or care because it doesn't have some token associated that's getting all this hype, or some network that's has some scandalous or some whatever behind it. It's just tech that's just being used. So yeah, the business decision is really really detached from the technical decision, and even from a technical decision, usually it's just sort of like what is the basic service being provided. Yeah, there could be a better technology, but if there are more partners that they can interact with, Ethereum, whatever, that could be the decision. Oh, there's more people to engage with, and the fees are worth it, whatever. So it's not really just like it sounds goofy. It's not just really like a tech thing, but that's kind of how the world's run.
Thanks, Quincy. That honestly answers my question perfectly. And I just want to remind people, sign up for Merlin 30 days absolutely free. And what this is it takes all of your different tokens from all your separate exchanges, puts them onto one location, and lets you create an exit plan. Check it out, guys. www.merlincrypto.com. Sign up 30 days absolutely free. But Johnny, while we got Quincy here, I think it's important to ask him this. Everybody talks about utility when we go through these market cycles. And this time is going to be different, right? That's what we've heard 3 or 4 times in a row now. But I want to ask Quincy, do you believe that during 2025 and whenever you anticipate a bull run comes around, is it going to be exactly like we've seen in the past, or is there going to be utility involved that'll lead to some of these tokens being, I guess, not repeating what they've done prior?
Yeah, so I've been asked this question multiple times. I remember when I first got asked this question, and I would have normally said either after regulation, you'd end up seeing a utility bank or a base or whatever, or after someone big who does it first, then everyone would follow after that. I probably would have said usually after like a huge hype, there's a lot of attention, and that lot of attention drives a lot of folk. Like people would start getting into based off that new attention. But to be honest, what I'm seeing now, and it's sort of weird, is I don't think any aspect of the public markets has anything to do with the total amount of adoption in any capacity. I think if you were to plot the total amount of technology that's being adopted and used and the total amount of hype there is around that technology, I think the graphs would almost be inverse. Now, I say this because like I've seen so many different projects built in the last like 6 months, and normally you see projects hop on during these bull runs, but if they don't stick around, like are they really growth to a network? Are they really growth? And there's a lot of those. But at the same time, there's even more projects that are working on a lot of different things that get no attention. And they might get a little bit of attention in these bull markets, but it almost seems as if like you'll see this huge growth of people building, and it has nothing to do like in the past, like bear market, whatever. I've seen more people build than I've seen like ever. And when things get excited, I see even more people, but it's almost like silly. It's sort of like this goofiness. And then you see people not really take it seriously. And then even the people who are building are now focusing on like marketing. So now they're not building as much as they were in the bear market because they're now marketing. And it's sort of this craziness where I feel like there's no connection between the utility of a different asset or a different network as there is to the total. Now, I think in a macro sense, yes. So when you see, and this is sort of a weird thing to look at, but if you see a token be able to gain general growth and maintain its value, I think what you're seeing is this overall baseline utility demand maintaining itself and growing. So that's one thing that I think is interesting, but it's a macro thing and not even like a quarterly or a yearly macro thing. It's like on the multiple years that you need to really see is there a maintain, because these things are so volatile. So even if it went up, a network, it sounds so crazy. Even if a network went up, 10,000% and then slammed down 8,000%, and maybe it's only up like 15% from where it was before, like that sustainable growth may actually be the actual growth, where a lot of networks may just lose that. And you can almost plot it too. A lot of people plot this in terms of, these growth lines, but all it is it maintaining some baseline level of, because once it drops below that, you see these things almost collapse. But if it's able to maintain some base level of demand and you're able to see over the long term, like I said, not just a few weeks, not just a few months, like over the course of like 4 years, let's look, has it been able to maintain some general, it's not quite a growth curve, but some general maintaining in the value, because a lot of these things are spiky. A good example of most networks or most tokens that like are crap, and even the ones that are trying to be utility or whatever that just don't really maintain themselves, they'll spike up, they'll spike down, and then there's sort of like this next spike. And once it loses that base level of value, it collapses. And I think that's mostly because it's false. Like there isn't really, it's mostly speculation. But what would happen if you took all the speculators out? Who's left? Well, that base level of demand, that utility, that base level of value, people literally like me that will buy the network and basically use these assets on the network to run applications, and then use those applications to move capital. And that moving of capital, as that grows, we buy more of the asset to move more of the capital. This is the whole thing with XRP. You buy more of the asset to move more capital because you need more capital. This is why you look like, this is literally why David Schwartz says it can't be cheap, because the more amount of value you have in the network, the more capital that can be moved. But that's the thing though, that movement of capital, for whatever reason, is that base level demand, and those are the applications that people are building and using, and the utility or whatever.
Yeah,
Quincy, go ahead, John.
I know we only got 10 minutes left and two people with their hands up, so I'm not going to say much. I did want to just say one thing. Quincy, I think one of the questions that always comes up is, I kind of 100% agree with you that the adoption rate is not really, it's going to be interesting to see the difference between the adoption of blockchain, which I think you're going to see that happening quite a bit, versus the value, the intrinsic value of the cryptocurrency. That's the thing I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Does the cryptocurrency really need to be there, and how is it going to be valued versus the blockchain itself? To me, that's kind of the question.
So it's the demand. It's almost like the liquidity demanded to move capital between two different entities that would otherwise need convoluted payment terminals. So if I'm in Japan and you're in the United States, and it would take a bunch of different processes, a bunch of different exchanges, a bunch of whatever to be able to move X amount of dollars. Well, if I can move that over the network, that general amount of value that I need to move will be moved in the network token. And that's the thing, it's a neutral mean. So you don't have to hold yen, I don't have to hold dollars, I don't have to hold yen, you don't have to hold dollars, whatever. We both hold XRP or XCC or whatever, and we can move that same means of value without having to. And we can do this with as many partners as we want. So instead of having to jump into dollars, yen, peso, euro, whatever, you can just jump into the native the native cryptocurrency and use that as a means of capital, and then use that as a means of exchange on that network. And the more demand that there is to move that value on that network between those partners, the more value that's attributed to. So it's sort of this interesting. This is a new concept too. This has never been anything. Closest thing you might be able to relate this to is maybe like oil or something. And I only say that because people demand oil to run economies, where these would be using the native token to run a means of production in terms of being able to move capital, or at least move capital over the internet. And it's an interesting concept that's sort of in its own experiment that's going to play out. But the main thing that the value is attributed to is the total demand that there is to move capital between those different partners, and that continuous volume to move that capital.
Yeah, the question I have though is this: for that to happen, does it matter whether XRP is $1 or $10? And you get 100 billion.
So don't look at it. This is what blinds people. Don't look at the dollars. Look at the market cap. The market cap will determine the total amount of value that can be exchanged in that given environment. If the market cap's only $1 billion, then you can only at any given time, in theory, only move $1 billion in that ecosystem. If the market cap's $1 trillion, yeah.
But it's so funny because every time I say that, talk about that Good Morning Crypto, it's all about the market cap. Everybody says, no. With cryptocurrency, it's not about the market cap. Market cap has nothing to do with it. So you would totally disagree with that. Yeah?
Well, the reason why people get so finicky about market cap is most people manipulate a lot of these tokens and give bullshit market caps. We can basically create a bullshit token with a market cap of $1 billion. But
shout out to FTX.
But it comes down to that base level of value. The true base level of value is $1 billion. The total demand of the network equals $1 billion. It truly is whatever. Then the capital is sustainable as a means of being able to move as like liquidity or move as capital between partners. If it's all over the place, then yeah, it's funny too, because it's not even about price for businesses. It's about volatility. A lot of these businesses would love to use these networks if there was zero volatility. But at the same time, how do you get more demand for people to use the networks without? It's sort of this weird. It's this weird experiment in itself in terms of how do you create enough incentives for a ecosystem to be able to fuel itself while simultaneously allowing it to be sustainable. And it's entirely programmatic and decentralized, so there's no one to monitor it. It's sort of just 1, 2, 3, go. And it's sort of like the best one survives. If he dies, he dies. But it's based off these incentives.
Yeah, so the way to think about it then today, if you think about it, XRP's at 50 cents. They've got 100 billion out there, 50 billion available. So it puts it around $25 billion market cap. So theoretically today, if it's dealing with transactions or total market cap isn't over 25 billion, you're not going to really see it move up. Because it's like, whoa. Every time there's news like, hey, it's being used, why is the price going up? Well, because we haven't really created the demand above that $25 billion market.
For you to measure demand, it's about trade volume. So this is where the real sustainability comes. Trade volume is only based off speculators jumping in and jumping out, then you're going to get a lot of volatility. But if there's consistent trade volume that continues based off people using the network for whatever they want to use the network for and continuously moving that capital, and that's saying, on both sides of the capital, whether they're accumulating the network token to move that network token or whether they're accepting the network token as a means of capital, that trade volume, all that trade volume is what's really determining what the actual true line, because you're going to talk about the overarching true value of the equilibrium price. Well, that equilibrium price would be entirely predicated off what the sustainable trade volume in reference to circulating supply, in reference to, there's a whole thing that would be calculated as demand. It'd be sort of this trade volume calculated with circulating supply, calculated with sort of like a long-term growth of the amount of value that's being moved, because there'd be the volume in the asset itself, but also the volume in dollars, because that's constantly fluctuating. So there'd be this huge calculation in terms of what that demand would be. But if you could calculate that, you'd find the true price, equilibrium price, that would be sustainable, predicated off the total amount of demand that you're trying to calculate.
And Johnny, I know you have an additional comment. Let me just throw this in here. What I think we learned from Quincy tonight as well is basically what you said is we may never see a day where Bank of America or some of these big financial institutions need to go and purchase large pools of XRP because they'll already be able to access that without sitting on it themselves, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah, a lot of services, there's probably going to be a whole market of sort of, sounds so funny because people hate this word, intermediary services that are basically operating as blockchain providers or a service to be able to interact with blockchain services. And they don't care about the chain, they care about the service. So if they're able to move capital and to be able to move it incredibly cheaply, you may end up, and that's the thing, in terms of Bank of America, I think the biggest of biggest ones will be running their own services on these networks, however that may be, because at that point, the volatility means nothing in terms of, they have other means of revenue in terms of being able to offset asset volatility. The savings, that's the funny thing in business world, savings is literally just the same as like revenue or profit. If you can save $1,000, you made $1,000. So then savings is them being able to move that capital may essentially offset whatever volatility there is itself. A lot of smaller businesses that aren't hooked up with these banks, or like I said, in developing nations where they barely have any infrastructure at all, would be very great to be able to utilize these, and you may see more growth in that domain. I think a lot of the big ones would already have something like this. You'll just see sort of like, and I only say this as like the top 3 banks in any country. Everybody else is probably going to be using some sort of Zelle-like service or whatever the fuck, but it would just be utilizing blockchain technology to move that capital.
Well, something that's interesting, Quincy, and I'm going to kick it right to you, Johnny, is we talked about, well, you wouldn't have a problem with liquidity unless you were doing over $25 billion in a transaction. If there's ever going to be a day where XRP connects banks' liquidity hubs, that's where you're going to see those massive amounts of liquidity, and that's where you could see that increased demand. So, Johnny, I know you had some additional thoughts for the floor, Jeff.
I just have the last question. So, Quincy, you touched on something important. You said the key driver that would drive the market cap is trade volume. So, how do we, as retailers, where can we look up, or how can we find what the total trade volume is for these cryptocurrencies?
Oh, I'm so glad you actually said this. So this is probably the most sophisticated way that you could justify. If you really wanted to justify any price, this would be the calculation to justify it. So here's what you would do. You look at the total market cap of something like oil or gold or whatever, it doesn't matter. Any other thing that operates out there with a sustainable market cap, sustainable trade volume, whatever. Look at that market cap, market gold or whatever, and compare that as a ratio with the total trade volume, the average daily trade volume, I guess you could say. And you'd want to compare that on a short-term and long-term scale. And the biggest thing you would want to do is you'd want to compare that. Now, it's not a one-to-one. This is why you'd probably have to find multiple ratios across multiple asset domains and be able to sort of find a general fair ratio. But then the idea would be how much of that trade volume can we see and match that with our trade volume, and essentially see what that ratio would relate to in the overarching. Now, one thing you have to consider is a lot of these other networks are a lot of these other assets are super over leveraged with derivatives, and that does have a huge effect on how these things are valued. So there could be an element where you may want to take that into consideration. But yeah, basically and in terms of finding trade volume, it sounds goofy, but literally I think CoinMarketCap does a pretty decent job of that, keeping track of trade volume between different exchanges for different assets. But
let me ask you. Let me ask you: is the trade volume today relevant, considering that it's really retail and speculation? It's not real demand trade volume.
It's not. I would say it's not relevant. Exactly. The biggest thing is you would have to find what services. This is sort of the weird mapping on. It's a very sort of like. It's a very basic way of looking at it, but it's the best thing you're going to get. If you can compare the ratio between market cap and sort of trade volume and maybe a couple other things that determine demand, you might even have to factor in interest rates or stuff like that, because that could factor in people putting in more leverage, all that. Anywho, when it comes to retail, everything that has to do with retail in terms of how that relates to that is almost entirely irrelevant. So judging any sort of short-term or spikes or anything, that is entirely irrelevant in terms of the long-term growth. But the closest thing you can get is if you were to justify certain services operating on these networks or certain industries operating on these networks, and let's say the financial services for cross-border remittance is like $1 billion industry, or $1 trillion, rather. Let's say it's a $1 trillion industry, right? And let's say the total trade volume is, let's say daily trade volume is $10 billion a day, or whatever, $100 billion, whatever number you want to put. You would sort of have to start comparing ratios with different industries that already exist, and then trying to sort of fit what an appropriate volume in a specific industry that could justify this demand on this network.
Yeah,
and then compare that with what gold and oil or whatever, and see if you can get something in the ballpark.
And one follow-up for you, Quincy. So really, it's not so much what the total trade volume cap. It's really correct me if I'm wrong, it really matters what the daily trade
average daily over the course of long,
because it has to be able to support.
And so, just for the record here, Johnny, XRP is far and away in another class when it comes to daily volume when it's really going. I've seen days where XRP is doing $20 billion, $25, $35 billion in a single day, whereas some of these other networks on their best days are doing $1 billion. So pretty interesting.
Well, remember, Abs, what matters though isn't so much that total because retail's baked into that number. What we need to figure out is how much of that is institutional or, business driven daily trade volume that's going to be there day in and day out. Right, Quincy? Did I understand that?
Yeah, that's going to be, because retail only comes in off speculative burst, where whatever the service is providing the service daily based off it's almost a core demand.
Thank you for tuning in to the Merlin Crypto Market Update located on the X app. I'm Abs, your host and Senior Engagement Officer at Merlin, and we hope you enjoyed this episode from our Merlin X Spaces. Remember, you can catch us live every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the X app at Get Merlin Crypto. If you want to take your crypto tracking to the next level, don't miss out on our free 30-day trial at merlincrypto.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.